This is Vigilant Podcast. This is episode 10. In this episode, I want to review the 6 planks of the open concept and kind of go through everything in one podcast, make any changes, adjustments, kind of new thoughts that I have on each of these planks, and give people that don't want to listen to the previous 7 podcasts on the open concept the opportunity to just listen to one episode. If you've never listened to the Ever Vigilant podcast before, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the podcast. If you have and you're back for more, thank you. And if you would, please leave me some sort of comment, some kind of review about the podcast. If you absolutely hate it, please leave me a comment. I want to make the podcast better. If you like it, please leave me a comment. I want to make the podcast better. You can always hit me up on Twitter at @TheEverVigilant or on Instagram at @TheEverVigilant or email evervigilantpodcast@gmail.com. Enough of that. Let's get right into the open concept. The open concept consists of 6 planks. Open your mind, open your eyes, open your ears, open your mouth, open your heart, and open your arms. So we're going to briefly go over each of these 6. Open your mind. Question everything. We are a generation that has been lied to by a generation that has been lied to. The truth will set you free. I believe we're living in a world filled with lies and deceptions. And in the original podcast, I went into talking about the Wizard of Oz and how I believe this correlates to the Wizard of Oz. We end up watching our TV screens or our professors or our preacher or our parents, and they remind me of the talking head that appears before Dorothy and the lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and Toto, and it's a big head. And they come in there thinking that this is the all-knowing, all-powerful Wizard of Oz, and they see this head and the flames and the loud thunder sounds, and they're enamored with it. They're so focused on this head that they don't see what else is going on around them. And the head tells them it will grant their wish if they come back with the broom of the Wicked Witch. They don't question anything. They are so certain that this head is the great and powerful Oz and can grant each of them their wish that they go off and do that. They go off and kill the Wicked Witch. And when they come back, they're the same way. They throw the broomstick down and they are terrified of this great and powerful Wizard of Oz, just like we are, on a daily basis, enamored with who's telling us what. And if it weren't for Toto getting a little curious and him looking around and finding out what was going on and pulling back the curtain, who knows how that story would have ended. We need to end that story like Toto did. Look around. Pay attention to the man behind the curtain. There's things going on that are hidden in plain sight. The old man didn't just appear there when Toto went over to the curtain. The old man was always there, controlling what was being seen and heard with a system of levers and buttons, and it's very similar to what's going on in our world today. We must be open to the fact that things aren't what they seem. Examine your beliefs, and after thorough examination, you'll either change your beliefs or you will own them. There is nothing wrong with questioning why you believe what you believe. Do you believe your parents' beliefs? Do you believe your pastor's beliefs? Do you believe a bumper sticker? Do you believe a politician's beliefs? Do you believe a party's beliefs? Who are you? Why do you believe what you believe? We need to own our beliefs. Two things can happen then, right? Once you start exploring and looking into why you believe what you believe, either you're going to have to change your mind because you don't believe that anymore, or you are going to own that belief. People won't be able to dissuade you from it because it will be your belief and you will know why you feel the way that you do. Open your eyes is the second plank in the open concept. And this plank is broken down into two parts. We need to open our eyes to avoid being a victim by being situationally aware, and B, to take notice of the beauty around us. This boils down to one thing in particular. And this you can see everywhere. We always have our phones or tablets or sitting in front of a computer, and you see people all the time out on the sidewalk, walking down the street, not paying attention to what's going on around them because they're paying attention to their phone. They're Facebooking, they're tweeting, they're texting. You make yourself a very easy mark or very easy to become a victim if you're not paying attention to your surroundings. This, like most of the planks in the open concept, you can get about as deep as you want to. If you want to go towards the deeper end of this, check out a book called Left of Bang, How the Marine Corps Combat Hunter Program Can Save Your Life. It's written by Patrick Van Horne and Jason Riley. This book talks about the Marine Corps Combat Hunter Program. The theory and why this program was invented and brought out was because as the Marines were patrolling the streets in Iraq, they often didn't know where the troubles were going to come from, who was going to take a shot at them, what was going to happen until something happened, till they became a victim, basically, right? And then they were put in a position to try to react to that situation. The Combat Hunter Program was devised to come up with a way to help these Marines become the hunters instead of the hunted. So as part of this program was that they needed to pay close attention to what was going on around them. And throughout the book, they give you different mannerisms, different hand gestures, different things that people do when they are stressed out. And if you're in an area where people are stressed out, or certain people are stressed out and other people aren't, you can look to that person as a potential threat. But there are many things around us. And the whole concept of the left of bang, which I think is brilliant, is if you have a timeline and bang is in the center of that timeline, you want to stay left of bang. You do not want to be right of bang, because right of bang means that the bang happened, the bad thing happened. You are reacting to that situation, versus left of bang, where you are able to adapt and avoid or evade that situation. Very simply put, it could be as easy as not taking a shortcut down an alley that you normally do because you just don't feel right about it that day, or you're alone, or crossing to the other side of the street because the street light is out, or staying out of a certain part of town because you know that protests are going on and you don't want to get mixed up in what might be going down. There are a lot of different ways to stay left of bang. But in order to stay left of bang, you need to have your head up, your eyes open, and at the very least be paying attention to what's going on around you. Don't let yourself become an easy victim. You know, that bang for us here in this country right now might not be an IED or somebody taking a shot at you. That bang could be a lot of different things. But You do not want to be reacting to a situation when you could have missed it completely. And then the second part of open your eyes and pay attention to what's around you is there's a lot of natural beauty around us that we never pay attention to anymore. And the flowers or trees in bloom or birds. I especially like seeing the birds of prey along the highway. I always put a smile on my face. But as we pay attention to those things, they always have a positive impact on us. And the more that we can see those things for what they are, a smiling child's face, a deer alongside the road, whatever it might be, the more that we can pay attention to that beauty that's around us, the less we're paying attention to the stresses that are going on in our life. And I think that it benefits us greatly to pay attention to those little things that can bring joy and pleasure to our lives. And they're simple things. The third plank in the open concept is open your ears. Stop hearing what is being said and start listening with intent. The difference between listening and hearing is intent. We need to do the best that we can to filter out the noise of what's going on around us and start to listen to people. Listening is pretty much a lost art. It's something that not very many people do anymore. Usually when we talk to somebody or we're having a conversation with somebody, we already have a pretty good idea where the conversation is going, what the conversation is going to be about, what the other person is saying. We have the gist of it before they even start talking. Whether we're at work or at home talking with our children or our spouse or a good friend hearing the same story for the third time, we know what's going to be said basically before it's said. So we lose focus. We stop paying attention to these things and we just start hearing it and pay attention to something else that's going on, a TV in the background, the phone in your hand, the person sitting next to you. We're very easily distracted, and listening is not easy. But we need to focus on listening, and listening leads to asking questions, and those questions lead to conversations, and those conversations lead to knowing that person better and having a better understanding of not only what that person is trying to tell you, but also who that person is and what they feel, what they believe, and who they are. In the original podcast of Open Your Ears, I had a funny story about listening. A couple years ago, when my son first started talking and kind of putting together full sentences and was getting a little bit better at speaking, he would always call restaurants what you wants. So it kind of became a family joke, and we would laugh about it, and we all started calling them what you wants. And this went on for months. We would go out for dinner to the what you want and, have a nice family dinner. So somewhere along the line, I finally started to listen to him, and I asked him, "Why do you call it a what you want?" And he looked at me with a very puzzled face, and he said, "Dad, that's because the lady says what you want." So here for a couple of months, we were teasing and joking around and having fun with what we thought was just him not understanding what the real name was at a restaurant. And here he had a perfectly logical explanation for why he called it a what you want. But these are the types of little tiny things that we miss in our lives when we don't stop and listen and ask a few questions. That will be a memory that will last me the rest of my life. That will be something that I tease him about when he's a father and tell my grandchildren about. Why? Because I took a moment to listen and ask a few questions. This is just a silly, silly story that means something more to me than it will probably mean to anybody else. But we can all have these moments in our lives, and we're missing out on them because we're paying attention and we're distracted by other things. And like I say, all of these are things that we can work on to become better every single day. Believe me, I do not have this one in my back pocket yet. This is something I struggle with on a daily basis, but I see the importance of it and know why. I know and I have seen the difference it makes when I take the time to actually listen, to ask questions, and to try to understand what the other person is thinking, how they're feeling, and why they think that way. Open your mouth. And for obvious reasons, and we all know why, open your ears comes before open your mouth. That was intended. Encourage others and speak the truth. Bravely share your beliefs, not to convince others, but that you may own them. Once again, this comes back to taking ownership of something. We have to be careful with the words that we speak because our words carry a lot of weight. You can crush somebody very quickly with the right words at the right time. We need to use those words to encourage those around us, to speak the truth, and to share our beliefs. But what I believe, and this is how I look at this about sharing your beliefs, it is far more important to share your beliefs for yourself and for your own good. To stand up for something and not be afraid of being made fun of or losing your job or losing somebody's respect. The reason we own our beliefs and we share them is for ourselves. The majority of people out there don't know why they believe what they believe. And because of that, you're not going to change their mind. You are not going to convince them of something different. People may buy into your concept or your way of life when they see it acted out and see that you live differently. And they may come to a point where they ask you questions about why you are different or what you believe. But getting into big debates with people why their beliefs are wrong is most likely not going to change anybody's mind or change anybody's opinion. It's far more important in my opinion that we open our mouth to share our beliefs, to put a flag in the ground so that you know who you are and others know who you are and know what you believe in and know what you stand for, and you're not just anonymous with your beliefs. That you aren't or don't appear to just be walking a ridgeline or straddling the fence. And people might not agree with you, and you need to be okay with that. It's not about changing somebody else's mind by yelling at them or getting angry with them or hating them. Your beliefs are your beliefs because, as we talked about in opening your mind, you've established what your beliefs, you've established your protocol, you've established what's important in your life and why you believe those things. So when you share them, it's as much for yourself to strengthen those beliefs and take pride in the fact that maybe other people don't like your beliefs because they're yours. The fifth plank in the open concept is open your heart. We must be intentional about building closer, deeper relationships with those that are important to us. This plank is all about deepening your relationships with those that are very close to you. Your family, brothers, sisters, your children, your spouse especially, close friends. It should become very obvious when you start thinking about who are the close people to you, and who you would be willing to open your heart to, should become very obvious who you probably should ditch as a friend and who you should stop wasting your time with and who is dragging you down, who is pushing you in directions that you don't want to go, and who it is that encourages you and who it is that builds you up and makes you into a better person. A big part of why we don't have the deep relationships that our grandfathers and great-grandfathers and the generations before that, I believe, is because relationships have been cheapened. Relationships don't mean what they did before. Relationships were necessary. You needed one another to help survive and build a life for yourself. Especially in the last few years, social media has cheapened friendships even more. See, before social media, what really kind of was cheapening friendships and what was bringing the real friendships and bonds and brotherhoods down was television and cinema. You know, there are studies that show that people who watch television programs on a regular basis, psychologically, they mentally feel as if they are friends with those people. They feel a relationship with those people. So it fools you mentally, it fools you in your mind into believing that you have friends, that you have relationships with people that you will never even speak a word to. But it fools us into not having the type of social bonds that are necessary to have a very fulfilling life. And now, in the last few years, with the onset of social media, it's even worse. Because not only do you have the TV and television and movies, but you also have the fake friends of social media. We've all know people who brag about how many Facebook friends they have. Those Facebook friends in actuality mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. Even if the only manipulative chicanery that was going on was that Facebook was taking you away from spending time with your child or your spouse or calling your father or brother on the telephone that week because you were spending your time on social media updating your status and reading everybody else's funny memes. If that was the smallest thing that was doing, was taking your time away from those that are actually important to you, that would be bad. But on top of it, what I think is so, I'm trying to figure out what the best word is to use here, but so bad, I guess, about social media is that it brings you in to a sort of vulnerable state like you are with friends, and then uses that also to manipulate you. Twitter has been making it so that certain tweets don't show up to other people. Facebook had it revealed, I think it was last year, that they were toying around with people's news feeds to see how they could affect people's emotions while they changed their news feeds and what was going on, and they found out that yes, they could. Well, my question is, how many people's days did they ruin with their manipulative experiments? How many people committed suicide or lost relationships with people because they were being manipulated by Facebook? And that's just what has been admitted to. You also are putting yourself in a position, if that's where you get your news from, to be extremely manipulated because they can control the news feeds that you're receiving. They can control how many likes different things are getting, so you get the opinion that everybody thinks this or everybody hates that. And all of those things Studies show that the majority of people will go along with the rest of the peer group, even if it appears that it's wrong, or they know that it's wrong. They will go along with everybody else because they don't want to be the one that says it's wrong. So we put ourselves in a situation and in a place where we're very easily manipulated unless you open your mind to the fact that that is going on. So when I talk about opening your heart, I'm talking about moving beyond, and maybe for some people, away from social media friends. What I am talking about in opening your heart is being vulnerable with those that are close to you. Are you going to get hurt sometimes? Yes. Can you just, if somebody hurts your feelings, click a button and says, I'm not your friend anymore? No. You have to hash it out and work it out and figure it out, because that's what you do with real relationships. You work them out, you figure them out, but that is what it is to be human. You are not always going to agree with everybody. Different people are going to have different thoughts on different things, and that's okay. But we need to, with intent, work on building those relationships. Spend time listening to those people. Open your ears. Open your mouth to encourage them and build them up. Friendship cannot be whittled down to a thumbs up or 160 characters. We need to have more respect for the word friendship than to even call those Facebook friends. It's really a shame. It should never have been friends. It should be acquaintances or people or contacts, but to associate the word friend cheapens the word friendship and cheapens friendship so much that in and of itself should make us realize how important it is that we start to open our hearts. And the sixth and final plank of the open concept is open your arms. We must work to form small groups or tribes to support, challenge, and protect one another. The lone wolf dies. Rudyard Kipling in The Jungle Book has a poem at the beginning of the book, and the poem is really good. You should definitely check it out. The poem is called The Law of the Jungle, and one part that I especially like is this. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. When I had originally drawn up and was thinking through and wrapping my mind around the open concept and the things in my life that I needed to be more open to, I originally had named this Open Your Hands. And I knew it kind of sounded a little bit like opening your hand to get something free. But my original intent was that you'd open your hand to meet new people, to network, to get to know different people from different ways of life and had different experiences, so that you could learn from those experiences and kind of to open your hand to meet new people that you normally wouldn't meet or normally wouldn't spend time with, to kind of open yourself up to new opportunities and new ways of looking at things. But as the open concept has grown and evolved over the last couple of years, it's become more and more obvious to me that the real necessity is to build tribes of like-minded people to once you have your inner core of people that you've opened your heart to, that you have solid relationships with, that you start to bring in new people that are like-minded, that feel the same way you do about your beliefs. And again, this doesn't happen without the other concepts. As much as each of these concepts is independent, they are each of them dependent on one another, in order to open your arms to embrace new people into into your tribe or into your family, into your brotherhood, you have to open your ears and listen. You have to open your mouth and share your beliefs so that you can see if your beliefs are compatible. You have to eventually open your hearts to these people. And you have to be able to open your eyes to see who they are. And you could go back over this on each of these concepts, just how intertwined they each are as much as they are each separate things. And a big part of my changing in thought on this was a couple of books written by Jack Donovan, Being the Barbarian and The Way of Men. And in those books, he talks about how we were created to be in tribes, to live in gangs, to spend time, especially as men, together in these groups. And another way, like something like this ties back in, is when you have a group, when you have a tribe, you don't need to be so fearful about sharing your beliefs. Because if something happens and you lose your job, or somebody gets angry with you and wants to punch you in the head, you have people that have your back. You have people that believe the same way you do and believe that way as strongly as you do. And there is a strength and a solidarity in that can't be faked. You know, we originally were created to live in tribes where everybody was working for the common good. If everybody wasn't hunting or growing food or fighting battles to protect this people group, everybody would die. You were interconnected on a very, very tight, extreme level of dependence on one another. And when you look back at history, that's how it was. People were dependent on one another for the survival of all. And as much as our culture and our society has tried to push this lone wolf, you can do it yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality, that's not really who we were built to be. We were built to rely on one another. When men are in groups like that, they challenge each other. People know who the fastest guy is. People know who the smartest guy is. You are put in situations where you are brave or courageous because you take on a challenge, and you have your brothers around you that know that you're that way. It doesn't matter that somebody else may say you are a coward or you are wrong in your beliefs. You know that there's a group of people around you that feel the same way you do. Today, this idea and these values of building tribes or small groups or gangs or however you want to call it is dying off. And even just a couple of generations ago, we had our grandfathers or great-grandfathers belong to the Elks Club or the Moose Lodge, or everybody belonged to a church, or they belonged to their booster club with their kids' schools. People were involved with other people and had close friendships and relationships. When my grandfather said somebody owed him a favor, it meant something. If he owed somebody a favor, it meant something. These are concepts that are very much dying in our culture. And studies are showing that the majority, especially of men, don't have any close friends. That if they needed advice on something or were going through something difficult in their lives, or needed to borrow a few $100s, or needed help with something around their house, that I don't know if the majority, some of the studies are different, but there is a huge percentage of men that don't even have anybody that they could do that with in their lives. that they have nobody that they could call up to go see a movie that they've been wanting to see, so they don't have to go by themselves, or to help them out with a project they're in the middle of. And this not being a part of something greater than yourselves, many are believing, is contributing to the high rates of suicides in adult males. The suicide numbers for men in there, I was looking at the numbers between like 39 and 50 are ridiculous. These are men that have children that are still in middle school or high school, and they're leaving their families because they don't belong to anything. When they're having these difficult times or dealing with depression, they have nobody to talk to. And they're starting to think the same thing might be going on with the suicides from the vets, that when they come back and get away from a situation where they are a part of something bigger than themselves, they're part of a brotherhood. Because what they are realizing is that many of the people that are committing suicide never saw combat. They, of course, dealt with the stresses of being in a foreign country and being in a battlefield, but many of them never saw combat. But yet when they come home and they aren't part of something bigger than themselves, and they see how shallow of a life we're living, that they can't deal with it. I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I think that this is something that we could really, really improve on and make our lives better and the lives of others better by opening our arms. We must join with people that will encourage us, challenge us, and fight for us. And that's, I think, what we're looking for, and one of the things that we're really lacking in our modern culture. So many of these things in the open concept were probably not as big of issues 50 or 100 years ago as they are now. Our world is filled with many more distractions. Our world is filled with much more entertainment and diversion. Our life is filled with things that make everything so much simpler that we don't need to rely on a friend or a family member to do things. We live in a world that we probably weren't really intended to live in. And we are losing many of the things that made us great, helped us as human beings survive on this planet. That is the open concept. Again, that's the open concept. Open your mind, open your eyes, open your ears, open your mouth, open your heart, and open your arms. This has been the Ever Vigilant podcast. Again, I would appreciate any comments, any thoughts. Subscribe to the podcast if you enjoyed it. You can always hit me up on the Ever Vigilant on Twitter, the Ever Vigilant on Instagram, or the Ever Vigilant Podcast on Gmail. Thanks again. Please let me know what you think so I can make this podcast better, make some improvements. Now that the open concept is out of the way, things will probably change a little bit with the podcast. We'll talk a little bit more about what's going on the homestead, what projects we're working on, what I think about what's going on in the news, things. I think the next podcast I'm probably going to do will be about go bags for kids, and kind of been working that out with my kids and what should be in their go bags. So as I work on that project, I'll be taking notes and be able to do a podcast on that. I think it's kind of something a little bit different, but very, very practical for everybody. So hope you enjoyed the podcast. God bless. And remember the 3 F's: faith, family, and freedom.